Hello everyone, welcome to Diagnose It. Today we have a case from pediatrics department and it is a quite common misdiagnosis that usually happens with a child of this year age with these kind of symptoms. So this is a 4-month-old child who presented with abnormal posturing. As you can see here, this arching of back with this abnormal posturing of neck also. With dystonia, as you can see this hypertonia of the muscles of the back. With 3 episodes of pneumonia since birth and normal EEG findings. From these above two features, the presence of posturing and dystonia, we can think of it as a neurological problem. But this also happens in the cases or in the real cases also. But by the normal EEG findings, we can easily rule out that this is not a neurological problem. This may be something else. And with the history of these 3 episodes of pneumonia since birth, with these specific features and this arching of characteristic arching of back that we can see here, we can make a diagnosis of Sandifer syndrome. Sandifer syndrome. So we are going to discuss the Sandifer syndrome in these headings, like firstly what is it and how it occurs. Next is what are the clinical features that by which the child present to us. Next is how we diagnose this case, and last is how we treat this case. What are the treatment modalities? So firstly, what is Sandifer syndrome? So the Sandifer syndrome is basically an atypical presentation of a quite common disease in these newborns and infants, and it can be defined as a type of movement disorder. Movement disorder, as you can see here, the movement, the posturing of the muscles of the child, which involves the head muscles, these neck muscles, and the muscles of the back, but characteristically spares the muscles of the limbs, and the child is also conscious during these episodes. But due to this specific posturing, the parents of the child think that it is a neurological problem and they take the child to a neurologist. Who usually, not all the times, who can misdiagnose this condition, and most of the child of the Sandifer syndrome are misdiagnosed as a case of something neurological problem like some kind of an epilepsy syndrome, and they are also treated with the medicines for this epilepsy syndromes. These medicines are, the child can take this medicine well, but these medicines are associated with a lot of side effects that the child had to face, which the child can avoid if the diagnosis of this syndrome can be made earlier. Next is, let's come to how this syndrome occurs and what are the features. Actually, we don't know what is the exact etiology behind it, but what we know is it is an atypical presentation of GERD, that is gastroesophageal reflux disease. That is quite common in this age group, these childs. As we all know, the child regurgitates food, but this manifestation, this Sandifer syndrome, this characteristic arching of the back, this is not that common. So what happens is, due to this GERD, the gastric content refluxes inside the esophagus, and the esophagus mucosa get eroded due to the lower pH of the gastric content. And as we all know, the mucosa of the esophagus is near the diaphragm, and as this mucosa get irritated, the content can also irritate the muscles of diaphragm and the nerve supply of the diaphragm, and also the muscles over the neck as well as back are also same. And due to this irritation, what we know is, due to this kind of irritation, the muscles of the neck as well as the back, that goes into the spasm and may lead to, sometime if the neck is involved, it may lead to torticollis, and if the back is involved, that this lead to this characteristic arching. You know what this arching is called? It is called an opisthotonus, and it is also seen in the cases of tetanus in elderly patients. There are some other things like there is another theory that can explain why this GERD leads to this arching of the back. It is sometimes it is a learned behavioral response that the child develops to basically decrease the abdominal as well as esophageal reflux that causes discomfort to the child. Now we have learned what is this Sandifer syndrome, how it presents. Now let's come to the clinical features of this disease. So what are the clinical features? As you can see in this diagram, this characteristic arching This is the characteristic clinical feature of this disease. And what is important for it is it increases, this abnormal posturing increases after feed, and it basically normalizes in the intervals between two feeds. And also the child is conscious at the time the child develops this arching. And if the child develops torticollis, then this is not true torticollis, because in true torticollis the sternocleidomastoid muscle, it is shortened. But in the Sandifer syndrome, in the torticollis, due to this, the sternocleidomastoid is normal here. And the clinical features can be easily confused with the episode of a seizure by the patient, and that we earlier discussed, the child may have to face the side effects of the anti-epileptic drugs due to that. And one more thing, the EEG findings of the child is quite normal. EEG findings are normal here. Other clinical features are excessive crying, irritability, vomiting, and due to the vomiting, some aspiration pneumonia kind of things, and other are choking sensation, choking after the feeding, gagging, and these are other symptoms of GERD by which the child can present. Now, how we diagnose this condition? First of all, it is a clinical diagnosis, and it should be kept in mind during evaluating the child for this abnormal posturing and dystonia. It can be a manifestation of neurological case, but the Sandifer syndrome should be taken in mind by the physician, by the diagnosing person. And to diagnose this condition, the clinical manifestations are enough, but firstly we need to rule out the other epileptic syndromes by EEG. And other thing is, we can basically do the pH monitoring, but pH monitoring is invasive test. So before doing pH monitoring, the child should be given a course of proton pump inhibitors, and if the child resolves, the symptoms of the child resolves after the use of this PPI, the invasive pH monitoring can be avoided. But yes, this pH monitoring usually gives the diagnosis of this GERD, that is enough for diagnosing the Sandifer syndrome. Now let's come to the treatment of this Sandifer syndrome. There are some modalities for the treatment, like one is non-pharmacological modality, one is pharmacological modality, and next one is the surgical modality. Surgical is a definitive modality, but usually we do not need surgical modality for the treatment, because most of the patients can be treated by non-pharmacological modalities, and the remaining one can be treated by pharmacological therapy. So what are the non-pharmacological things is, we can do behavioral modification of the parents, like they can thicken the milk. The density of the milk should be thickened more by adding cornstarch or any other cereal based flour kind of thing, to increase the density of the milk, so that the regurgitation do not occur that frequently. Next one is by not reclining the child, or by not making the child in recumbent position, so that the reflux decreases. Next one is using pharmacological therapies. In pharmacological therapies, we can use proton pump inhibitors or alginate, that basically decrease the manifestations of the GERD by decreasing acid production, as well as by making a barrier so that the acid cannot reflux back towards the esophagus. Next one is in the surgical modalities. As we all know, there is this Nissen's fundoplication, that is the surgery, that is the definitive surgery. And what we currently do is this floppy Nissen's, to prevent the development of the syndrome that we know, the gas blot syndrome, like in which not even the gas can pass through the lower esophageal sphincter, and that may lead to discomfort in the child in the future also. So this is all about the Sandifer syndrome. It is not that common, but yeah, it is an atypical representation of a common disease, so we need to know about it. So this is all about it. If you have any question regarding it, you can post it in the comment section, or you can DM me on my Instagram handle @diagnoseIt. So thank you.